You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media. You're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
7:06 now. Nice to have you back up north on this Friday morning. It is September 12th, and our Week in Review panel will be coming up in just a bit. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle will be here. Journalists Mark Jacob and Jennifer Schulze will be joining us as well. Got an early start to the weekend, so listen throughout the day on your local Civic Media station for a forecast that last I checked seemed to be a pretty promising one for a good chunk of the weekend. Maybe some precipitation tonight. Other than that, things are looking real good. Plus, the Packers won't be playing this weekend since they won yesterday. So get on out and enjoy the weekend as best you can. Robin Tigerton, of course, is not taking a day off. He says it's foggy and 51 degrees and mowed 5 yards in the Tigerton area. 2 more today. Says, I watched the Packers beat the Commanders 27-18. Great win last night. I'm going to the Tigerton Lions Club steak fry on Saturday night. Parker Olson's producing this shindig down in Madison Studio A2, and I have to admit, I've been to charcoal chicken feeds. I've been to a lot of things. I don't know that I've actually been to a steak fry where it's just a whole massive amount of steaks on the grill and you grab one of those, but I would go.
I was going to say, that sounds like a fantastic idea.
It really does. It just seems like the ones are either, chicken or brats or, whatever, but
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever been to a steak fry. I'm not going to be in the Tigerton area this weekend though. So I'll be on the lookout for one.
You have an opportunity here, Pat.
I know. So again, if you didn't stay up, and I didn't, a lot of people didn't, but the Packers beat the Commanders 27-18 last night. Jordan Love threw for 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. You couple that with a victory over the Lions on Sunday. The Packers already have 2 wins over playoff teams from last season in just a 5-day span. And now they have 9 days before their next game. Tight end Tucker Kraft had 6 receptions for a career-high 124 yards, including an 8-yard touchdown midway through the fourth quarter to crush the Commanders' attempt at a comeback. I like that. The Packers pass rush kept Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels to unusually low numbers, but the team also suffered a big loss when wide receiver Jaden Reed broke his collarbone in the first quarter, making an amazing 33-yard catch in the end zone. That should have been a touchdown and was nullified by, how do I put this properly? A stupid penalty.
There were a couple of, I'll call them soft.
There was,
penalties.
Where was the other one where Coach LaFleur lost his mind at a player?
I thought was
who ran
really
on
bad.
out of the field when he wasn't supposed to, and I don't know I've ever seen him that animated angry at a player.
That's probably true. At a player, that's probably true. Yeah. I think originally he was mad at the officials, then they told him what happened, and then he turned it on the player. I didn't see who the player was.
He really did. So, again, they normally have the next day off. So he's not, whoever that player was, I didn't take his name down. He's not running laps today, but I'll bet you next week sometime when they look back at the film on that. Can you imagine a film session the way they do after every game? If we had to do that after every show, if we had to just go sit in a dark room and Luke Mathers rolls the footage and then stops and starts it and occasionally berates us for what we do and how we did it and how we executed.
How would you like those coaching sessions to change into that?
Wouldn't that be something?
Oh,
having just a film room instead.
I
since we're on social media, we have a video component. You can literally roll the film and go, what was that smirk right there, Kreitlow? What was that about?
What are you suggesting here?
Yeah, right. Okay, thankfully we don't have that problem here. Luke right away on the text line. I love this idea.
I wouldn't.
I am suddenly filled with regret for giving him an idea.
I genuinely think that would be entertaining and possibly actually fun to do like once a week, especially after a week like this. Get the spirits back up, folks.
It could be fun. It could also be soul crushing.
Eh.
Romeo Dobbs touchdown to open scoring for the Packers, capped a 7-play, 96-yard drive. And that included a 57-yard completion to Kraft, a 14-yard scramble by Love on a 3rd and 9. Josh Jacobs made it 14-0 with a 2-yard touchdown run to finish a 10-play, 92-yard march. Jacobs finished with 84 yards on 23 carries. And so now the Packers are off for 9 days. Their next game is Sunday, September 21st, a noon game against Cleveland. And you'll be able to hear that on several stations across the Civic Media Radio Network. Meanwhile, the Badger football team is in Alabama for the very first time playing the Crimson Tide on their home turf. The pregame begins at 9 o'clock on several Civic Media stations. And the Milwaukee Brewers are back in action after a day off. They are home against the St. Louis Cardinals. Coverage begins this evening at 6:35 on some of the stations of the Civic Media Radio Network. But apart from the series this weekend against the Cardinals, there will then be a series of games next week against some team whose name apparently is still in doubt by the elderly host of this program, who grew up with them being called the California Angels.
Yeah.
And then they insisted on becoming the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And then they were the Anaheim Angels. And now apparently, are they just the Los Angeles Angels now? Is that the
They are just the Los Angeles Angels now. I'm not sure that you've got that in the right order, but I do think that those are all true names that they have had.
Those are all true names, and I think I might have that in the right order. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is the Brewers play, again, the Cardinals this weekend, the Angels, whatever the heck they are, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those are all night games, by the way, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And you have a chance to go to the Thursday night one on us, on Civic Media, and get 4 great seats to do that because it's Free Ticket Friday. Normally we'd put some big intro in there, but I never did. There we go.
Yeah.
And that's why we want you to get your phone out, get to your Civic Media app, call up one of the stations where you can hear this show and many other fine programs. Use the text feature and text us between now and 9 a.m., the end of the show. Text us the keyword catch. CATCH. Like, I'd love to give you these tickets, but there's a catch. You got to be able to receive and use tickets on your phone, and you got to be able to use them. If you can go to that game next Thursday night against the Angels of wherever, then use that text feature. Text us catch.
Okay. It was California Angels.
Yes.
Then it was Anaheim Angels.
Then it was Anaheim. Okay.
Then it was Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Okay.
And then in 2016, they dropped the of Anaheim, and they are now simply the Los Angeles Angels, formerly of Anaheim.
Okay. Why don't they just change their name to not the Dodgers? I mean,
yeah, they've
if you're
got
going
quite
to take
the brand
Los Angeles,
to fight against there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little tough for them.
But I mean, look, it's not as bad as the Athletics or the A's or whatever, who are currently the Athletics of West Sacramento, someday to be Las Vegas.
They're just the A's right now. They don't acknowledge where they are at all.
That's unbelievable.
It's so bad.
And again, that should not have been allowed to happen to Oakland, but again, there's plenty of politics involved. But nice to see entries coming in. Again, catch the word between now and 9. There will be more chances for you to enter and win throughout the course of the day, different keywords on different programs. And so, yes, you'll get multiple entries, and then one of those entries will be pulled to win 4 tickets to next Thursday's game, Brewers against the Angels. Hey, have you met Ellie yet? Ellie is the new newsletter editor for Up North News. She works on our weekday edition, and I still put together the Sunday morning politics edition of our newsletter. Ellie is a native of Oconomowoc and is getting back into the swing of things here as our new newsletter editor. While we were kind of, in transition there, we went from Monday through Friday to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but now Ellie's on board and we'll be getting back to Monday through Friday real soon on that newsletter, full of good Wisconsin stories and features and news. And so for all of that, be sure you head over to our website and sign up, subscribe at upnorthnewswi.com. In today's edition, it's if you like to take your dog out and about and maybe want to take your pup for a pint, there are some Wisconsin breweries and beer gardens that welcome dogs. Nice little story about that. And it is not too soon to plan your weekend bucket list. The bucket list has got to include some fall colors. And this newsletter has a link to a story about 9 of the prettiest drives that are out there. So again, get signed up for the newsletter over at upnorthnewswi.com. Parker, one story that came out this week that I thought was worth mentioning was about the richest people in Wisconsin. As you know, Forbes puts together a list, and for years and years and years and years, we have been telling you that John Menard of Menards is the richest man in Wisconsin, the richest person in Wisconsin.
Please be Craig Culver.
No more. He has been bumped off the list by Diane Hendricks, the chair, owner, and co-founder of ABC Supply of Beloit. She now is the wealthiest person in Wisconsin, according to Forbes. The 78-year-old has a net worth of $22 billion compared to the paltry $20 billion that Menard, age 85 of Eau Claire, is worth. Hendricks, now with being the wealthiest one in Wisconsin, is also the 44th wealthiest American. And Menard is number 48 on the list. And has been the case in recent years. Wisconsin still has 7 billionaires on the Forbes 400 list. They include Judy Faulkner, 82 years old, worth nearly $8 billion, who is the founder of Epic Systems out of Verona. There's James Cargill, who is one of a dozen heirs to the Minnesota-based Cargill fortune. The 76-year-old is worth $5 billion. Then there are 3 members of the S.C. Johnson Company out of Racine, and they are each worth just about $5 billion. Let's see, there's also some folks with some Wisconsin ties, including Tennessee resident Jimmy Haslam, co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, who has a net worth of about $8 billion. Ron Wanek, the founder and chair of Ashley Furniture out of Arcadia, has a net worth of $6 billion. His son, the current CEO of Ashley Furniture, is also a billionaire. And last but not least, there's Dick and Liz Eline, co-founders of Pleasant Prairie-based Uline. And both of them, 80 years old, are worth $6 billion. Still have $6 billion, despite throwing more money than God into political ads for boosting all kinds of candidates and causes and things like that. I mean, just adding up the Wisconsin billionaires alone, I should have done that math here, but I mean, we're talking what, 60, 70 billion dollars.
More money than it should be.
With just those 7 or 8 elderly people. And so when people want to look at, somebody down the road who's maybe getting, some Medicaid benefits, or, somebody who maybe is getting a break on their college tuition and saying, that's the problem. That's where my money is going. No, we know where your money went. And we know how to deal with this. We had a tax code that built up the middle class for the first few decades after World War II. And then some of those billionaires figured out if they get political power, they get to hoard more of it. And that's exactly what's happening until the voters change things once again. Our Week in Review panel is coming up. Live from the lake, I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Free Ticket Friday is back. Your chance to catch the Brewers versus the Angels of wherever they're from next Thursday. Use the Civic Media app to text us the word CATCH, C-A-T-C-H, between now and 9 a.m. There will be more keywords throughout the day, more chances to win. One drawing statewide will be plucked at the end of the day to get 4 tickets to next Thursday's game. I mentioned that the weather's going to be nice. Get out and about. In the newsletter, we talk about some of the fall colors drives. If you don't want to wait till then, we talked yesterday about like Lake Geneva Taco Fest is going on. The Fall Festival in Eau Claire is taking place this weekend. There's the Vernon County Fair. The last county fair of the season is going on in Viroqua this weekend, and so much more. So get out and about and then take us with you along the way. And that includes as a podcast. Go to Spotify and you can follow this show. There's always a weekend edition that kind of wraps up some of the best segments of the week. One of our favorite segments of the week starts right now. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle is here, along with journalists Jennifer Schulze and Mark Jacob. Good morning, all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to have you all here. Let me, before I never want to forget to tell people to go get your newsletters, listen to your programs. From Mark Jacob at stopthepresses.news. The new edition is Why Won't the Media Say Trump is Becoming a Dictator? For Jennifer, look up News Jennifer and get her newsletter Indistinct Chatter on Substack. And Jim Santelle has Amicus, a law review here on the Civic Media Radio Network Saturday mornings coming up at 9 a.m. And Jim, I'm going to start with you just because, again, there's so many directions that we could go in, but one I just wanted to get get some clarity on, and then maybe Mark and Jennifer want to react. In what world is the Supreme Court able to say, well, race shouldn't be a consideration for things like college admissions, but race can now be a consideration? You can engage in racial profiling if deciding whether to arrest or detain or harass someone just because you think they might not be a citizen. Can you make that make sense?
The answer to your question is it's not a world that I have known. It's not a world in which the United States has been in for decades, if not beyond that. A district judge, here's her name, Mame Frimpong. She is my hero this week, and she's been a hero for a while because she is the one who told us once again, told the president, told law enforcement that the standard for arresting people on the street, for detaining them, is what? It's reasonable suspicion. Got to have some reason to believe that this person is engaging in criminal activity, is violating the law. And she goes on to say in a very compelling order that simply rearticulates what law enforcement has done in America for decades, if not beyond, that you can't do things based upon simply the color of one's skin, the things you're wearing, where you happen to be working, where you happen to be standing, how you look, how you speak. That is not reasonable suspicion. And stunningly, on Monday, in one of the most shocking of the opinions issued under the shadow docket, we get a one-sentence order reversing that. What does that mean, America? What does that mean? And you get Brett Kavanaugh, who adds on a very long addendum to this, and he says 2 equally stunning things. He says, well, any one of these things, Judge Frimpong's right, any one of them is not sufficient. Put them all together, put all the zeros together, and then you've got a 100. And then you can go out and arrest people. And beyond that, statistically, if you wrangle up 100 people in Los Angeles, in particular neighborhoods, the statistical chance is you're going to get 10 people who are in violation of the law. So that's okay too. Our Solicitor General says the same thing to the United States Supreme Court. It is shocking at the highest levels. And I got to tell you, if I were to be teaching law enforcement, as I do regularly here in the Wisconsin area, about what the standards are for arresting people and detaining people on the street, as of Wednesday, I would have taught it differently. This morning, I don't know what the law is. Thank you, the Supreme Court. Justice John Roberts, how dare you do this to America?
And Mark, we have seen the video of like U-Haul trucks open up and all these stormtroopers come out and start rounding up all these people in the parking lot. I don't think there was probable cause for every one of those individuals. Again, stress the word individuals, not just a whole bunch of people who don't look like you.
Well, and they're wearing masks. I mean, how is a person on the street supposed to know if they're real, law enforcement people or they're just criminals who are trying to kidnap them? I mean, we're in a terrible position here. And just following on what Jim said, Brett Kavanaugh defending it, he says, well, usually, they'll just question you and let you go, in fine order. Yeah, if you look like Brett Kavanaugh, they will. I mean, this is clearly racist. It's the definition of racial profiling, and they're doing it. I mean, it's a terror campaign against people who don't look white. That's what it is.
Yeah, and again, Jim has talked about the shadow docket a lot, Jennifer, but in reporting it, it certainly seems that it behooves reporters as well to take note that these issues are coming, or these rulings are being issued without any kind of legal background. It's just simply like a one sentence order, much the same way that Trump puts out, tariff decisions.
There is some really good coverage about that. I'm afraid we are in a moment where there's so much going on and the journalism world has been decimated that I don't know how much of it actually breaks through, right? I mean, NBC News has some really good folks that are covering this. Some of the Substackers or Dahlia Lithwick on Slate, they're talking about the shadow docket with some regularity. But I mean, on a scale of 1 to a million, with everything that's happening, it's way down at the bottom. I also want to say about Brett Kavanaugh, has he not watched television or been on social media for the last couple of months and seen what's actually happening, the reality of these stops? It is the opposite of what he describes in his order.
Yeah. And again, it is, when they say justice is blind, justice should at least have a TV set and get some kind of a feel for what is going on here.
His clerk should.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to explore this more with Jennifer Schulze, Mark Jacob, former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, all coming up in just a bit as we continue our Week in Review panel for this Friday. We will, of course, get into coverage of the Charlie Kirk murder as well. And another reminder for Free Ticket Friday, the keyword before 9 a.m. is catch. From the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota, thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We're back after the Midwest Farm Report next. Remember, along with the weekday newsletters I was talking about just a bit ago that Ellie is putting together for us now, there is our Sunday morning newsletter with a focus on politics. It includes our question of the week. And with everything else that's been happening this week, we don't want to lose sight of what was happening before then. And that included a president who was flip-flopping on the Epstein files and once again delaying justice for the victims. What caused the flip-flop? We give you some multiple choice options. And if you want to be the first to see that, then sign up for our newsletter over at upnorthnewswi.com. Back with our Week in Review panel, former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, journalist Mark Jacob, and Jennifer Schulze. And Jennifer, let me go to you on this first about the Charlie Kirk murder. You can feel the tension. You can hear the conversational wrestling about how you talk about somebody who was murdered, clearly did not deserve to be murdered. Violence is not the answer, but you also can't sane wash who Charlie Kirk was and what he stands for. And you've got people saying, well, that's just violent rhetoric, when I'm sorry, calling a racist isn't violent rhetoric, and he doesn't deserve to be murdered. But I don't feel like we should be sugarcoating who Charlie Kirk was.
I think a lot of the mainstream media, particularly Ezra Klein of the New York Times.
Oh, yeah, we're going there next.
Completely ignored intentionally who Charlie Kirk was. I have had the misfortune of actually listening to his radio show for reporting purposes. And I'm like many people have, just for fun. It's just shocking. But I could tell you from my own experience that if you had even listened to one show, let alone done a job and really paid attention to his massive media output, and let's just say he has a massive media enterprise. He is on every platform. He is did events. He is everywhere all the time with the same type of rhetoric, and it is vile. It is hateful. I want to remind people that he started I won't go on an airplane that's being flown by a black pilot. I won't have surgery with a black surgeon. He was a racist, and anybody who is ignoring that is not, well, they're not doing journalism, they're doing propaganda, and it's really disgraceful.
Yeah, and Ezra Klein, he's the poster child for this, saying that that Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way, didn't deserve to be murdered. Mark Harris had a great response to Ezra Klein, saying, "You can write this only if, by virtue of your income, identity, or both, you are utterly removed from the consequences of politics. To pretend that the racist, misogynistic, anti-gay vileness that Kirk spent his life spreading is secondary to the fact that he spread it the right way is appalling." Mark.
Yeah, it was. I didn't. I was floored by that headline, and I think that the problem, just following on Jennifer, I feel like the problem is that they will say, well, Charlie Kirk had controversial views, or his views didn't, not everyone accepted his views, or they won't get specific. I mean, he said just this month, Islam is a sword the left is using to slit the throat of America. So he is constantly going after Muslims in this country. He's a crystal fascist. I'm sorry he was shot. I think that's terrible for everyone. It's bad for this country that people get shot for what they believe in, even if they believe in vile things. But he believed in vile things. And for the news media need to get specific on the things he said and not just vague it out by calling them controversial.
So, Jim, let's take it to a First Amendment standpoint, which I know it sounds like a slam dunk. The First Amendment protects speech no matter how vile, and violence is never the answer. And I'm definitely not asking you to stand in for Charlie Kirk, except to say we all understand that in this country, like it or not, vile speech by and large is protected.
Supreme Court and other courts have always said that we will let you say uninformed, offensive, even just violative of our basic norms. We'll say that out loud because that's how important the First Amendment is. There is a line. And it's either, you can call it fighting words, you can call it incitement to violence. There is a limitation on the First Amendment. And that's also to be understood. The question, of course, whether Charlie Kirk has crossed that here, that's obviously for further analysis. But there is a First Amendment analysis to be undertaken here. I would offer, Pat and others, there's also, again, a Second Amendment analysis, which is putting aside all of this, which I endorse, everything that the three of you have said wholeheartedly. The Supreme Court has also told us unequivocally, at the pen of Antonin Scalia, 17 years ago, can you regulate guns? Can you address this problem in America, whether it's there in Utah Valley University or Evergreen High School? The answer is yes. You can impose reasonable, rational limitations, restrictions, all those words on the manufacture, sale, transfer, possession, use of weapons in America. That is legal. That is constitutional. The fact of the matter is that we know that things work. Things like extreme risk protection orders, safe gun storage, loopholes for the gun shows, assault weapons bans. We don't know, all these kinds of things work. We know they work because in states that have passed them, the rates of gun violence go down dramatically. We know the American public is behind this overwhelmingly. And so generations down the road will be calling upon all of us, our great-grandchildren and grandchildren, asking us, you knew what you could do it legally, people were in favor of this, people are getting killed, whether it's the Mark Kirk, the Kirks of the world, or the other people in this country. Why didn't you do anything? Yeah. Why didn't you do anything? And there's no answer to that in America anymore. There is no answer to that. No. We can do it, and we can make it happen tomorrow if we wanted to.
Part of it is you have a right-wing ecosphere that is, again, continuing this perverse interpretation of the Second Amendment. But Jennifer, that just goes under the category of disinformation. And as Greg Sargent put it the other day, the MAGA disinformation machine is as bad as I've ever seen it. The job numbers, they're saying they're fake. The falling crime stats are bogus. The tariff fiasco, they're saying, is actually a wild success. And Trump's letter on the Epstein birthday card is forged. I mean, it is it is more difficult than ever to inform people when the misinformation machine is churning things out in such volume, as you said a few minutes ago.
Well, I think a couple of things to keep in mind, that a lot of that churn is happening, and only a small part of the country are seeing it. Not everybody is online. I heard a commentator say they suspected that most of America wouldn't even know who Charlie Kirk was, by way of example of just what's been in the ecosystem lately. But yes, MAGA has turned the world upside down. MAGA media, which is growing by the minute. I mean, the idea that Paramount, who just bought CBS, might now also buy CNN, it should be really frightening for all of us. Pretty soon, the oligarchs are going to own all of the media except stuff like civic media, but all of the big media. And that is going to make this even worse.
And by the way, Mark, we have seen this happen before. We've talked about Hungary and Viktor Orban and how private money buys up media and then is, sympathetic or in support of the state. So it's not the state seizing the media, but when you see big media mergers like this, I mean, I don't know if it's part of your newsletter about Trump becoming a dictator, but it certainly is in that playbook.
Yeah, I do mention it, that the idea of media, what they call media capture, which is that the would-be dictator or his allies buy up all the big media, and so that the truth, the facts get either disappeared or strongly muted. And Orban's been doing that. It's in the fascist playbook. I mean, that's what they do, and it's very alarming to see it. We need to pay attention to media that are trustworthy. I mean, I like to always push the Guardian, and I think that it's sadly ironic that a UK-based news outlet is covering American politics better than any of the American publications. And the Guardian had a story that I put on my Blue Sky account listing all the horrible things that Charlie Kirk said. I mean, get to the facts, and they do get to the facts.
There is also, I saw an article this week from under the Badger Project, and the headline is UW-Madison's story, partisan news sours consumers on political compromise. Now, that headline sounds rather both sides-ish, but their subhead says right-leaning media users are less likely to support political compromise, a new study suggests. And in general, partisan media consumers tend to see political disagreements as right or wrong. And again, Jennifer, I would just caution against the both sidesism. You can have a point of view in journalism. We're right up front about that at Up North News and Courier Newsroom. But it also has to be fact-based, and that should be the standard, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does come back to facts. So that's the difference between what you do, what a lot of news organizations, frankly, a lot of the smaller ones, like The Guardian is a perfect example. What they do is fact-based as opposed to propaganda, where the intent of Fox is not to tell you the truth. It is to move things in a particular direction to cause disruption, to get certain bills passed, but the goal is propaganda. It doesn't have anything to do with facts. And separating those out and understanding the difference between them, it's really hard for people. I mean, Fox is the most watched cable news, and I hate to use news when I describe them, but they are the most watched in the country, and by a lot. A lot of people, 5 million people watched Jesse Waters the other night say that Democrats were the villains in the Charlie Kirk murder and should be attacked, and people should come after them basically with pitchforks. I mean, a lot of people are getting the propaganda. Fewer people are getting the facts.
Yeah. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, let's just in the last couple of minutes of this segment hit on another decision that came out where essentially was it just Chief Justice John Roberts alone who allowed President Trump to continue to block foreign aid? I mean, between the Supreme Court and this Congress, how much unilateral power they're giving to the chief executive is, I mean, concerning, alarming, pick your word.
Absolutely. And once again, We go back to this notion that the Supreme Court should be resolving these matters based upon briefs and based upon argument, and should be telling us the reasons for doing what it is doing. If these were insignificant, small things around the edges, they're major policy decisions. And it is another reason for Americans to be very upset about the highest court in the land, including the Chief Justice, who has to think about his legacy. I talked before about how we think about this in our generations to come. When you look back on this era, and especially the last 8 months or so, and the decisions by the Supreme Court, this is just the latest one, making these decisions, giving the president the capacity to go ahead while the underlying merits are still being argued. They've not been resolved. That's the outrage of all this. And once again, I'll say it the second time this morning, shame on you, Chief Justice John Roberts.
Jim Santelle, Mark Jacob, Jennifer Schulze, our week in review panel with us here on Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News on the Civic Media Radio Network. In our next hour, we're going to be talking to Dr. Kristen Lyerly a bit about not a doctor, Robert Kennedy Jr., and what he had to say about autism and Tylenol. And Mike Clemens will be along as well to talk about the Packer victory last night over Washington. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You're Up North.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Back now with Jennifer Schulze, Mark Jacob, and Jim Santelle. Well, I was. Now let me hit that button. There we are. Now we're all back together again. And just a little heads up that we may or we may not be going into a press conference that has an update on the potential capture of a person of interest in the Charlie Kirk murder. Jennifer, you were monitoring NBC. What is it that they were reporting?
NBC's reporting that that a family member saw pictures of the suspect that were released by the FBI in the last day or so and called, and they have arrested someone, a young man in his 20s from Utah. But that's all the information we have.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, we'll monitor that. And if need be, we will take that, or we'll, again, my concern is that like so many other things in this administration, it just may be a lot more speculation or hyperbole. And so we're going to judge whether, it's something to air live or tell you about after the fact. Mark, if I can switch gears slightly here. One of the stories that was going to be gaining traction before the Charlie Kirk murder was a bus attack in South Carolina, I believe it was, on a young woman refugee from the war. Only to say this, between that and a couple of other killings lately, maybe it's not quite Willie Horton-esque, but there certainly seems to be a lot lately in right-wing media of selectively choosing heinous crimes that happen to have black suspects. And I say that not that anything can be done about it, but sometimes I feel like attention needs to be called to it.
Yeah, no question. Black suspects and immigrant suspects. And, the thing about this, was that murder in North Carolina was just terrible. And unfortunately, in this country, terrible murders happen all the time, and they have happened all the time for decades and decades and decades. And part of the tactic of Fox News and other right-wing media they want to make you think that we're going to hell in a handbasket, when the fact is that crime is actually down from what it was in the 1990s and the aughts. I mean, crime has been steadily dropping in recent decades, steadily. And it was one blip during COVID, but beyond that, if you look at the graph, it's going to tell you that crime is going down, that we're actually fighting crime successfully these days. And yet they want you to think that everything is terrible and that they're the answer to all the terribleness.
And it's a very easy thing to do because, and I often use this with, Ronald Reagan's welfare queens, that he loved to say,
right.
All you got to do is have one. You just got to have one, and you can make a big deal out of it. And suddenly people think, oh, half the people on welfare are, doing it out of waste, fraud, and abuse. all you need is one crime and just play it on a loop over and over again. Jim, you have to deal with a lot of this, the way that crime is depicted, much less how it's handled in the courtrooms. What kinds of things are you going to be talking about this weekend on Amicus Saturday morning starting at 9?
We're going to talk about, again, regrettably, the continuing decline in the basic rule of law, which we have talked about a little bit this morning. We've got inside the judiciary judges who are defying what the Supreme Court has said. We've got the former Justice Breyer, who is defending a judge who was criticized by the Supreme Court for not following what the Supreme Court has directed. It is a mess. And once again, it's because the Supreme Court has created this situation where lower courts do not know what they are to do. And we're going to talk about that a lot.
Well, yeah, because again, when you use that shadow docket, I mean, yeah, it applies to maybe that one case, but now apparently every judge is supposed to read into these very short statements rather than long reasoned legal rulings and determine, how they apply to them. In other words, it's not how this is supposed to work. Mark, you've got, again, in your newsletter, why won't the media say Trump is becoming a dictator? Any other points in there that we want to make sure folks know about, and head over to stopthepresses.news?
Well, I just think we need to understand that not everyone in America is a news nerd and is watching the news all the time, and it can take 12 different signs of Trump becoming a dictator and do the math and figure it out, which is why the news media need to bring all the facts together and write sweeping stories that show that the clear trend line is Trump amassing dictatorial power. That's what he's doing. I mean, you see, he declared war on Chicago very recently. I mean, he's really irresponsible, and he's a threat to all of us.
And again, he threatened it, but now apparently is pulling back. Now I'm seeing a note this morning, was it Memphis, that he was making comments that maybe he's going to send the National Guard to Memphis. A few days ago, Jennifer, it was New Orleans. This whole notion of a president speculating out loud where to send troops. Again, it's a challenge to cover it, but especially, looks like we might have dropped Jennifer. So Mark, I'll come to you, is that, don't normalize a president threatening to send troops.
No, and this idea that I think he is maybe backing off on Chicago because he got such pushback here. This is where I am. I'm based in Chicago, but he may go to Memphis because the governor would like it, and because this governor is a Republican. But this is him getting us used to the idea of him deciding to put troops in the streets of our cities. And he's trying to lock down the country so that he can do whatever he wants. I mean, and I hate sounding like an alarmist here, but people, it's time to be alarmed. It is. Yeah,
genuinely so. And then mixed in with all of this seriousness is admittedly some of the silliness of it all, or the ridiculousness of it all. And that would be the member of Congress who tweeted that, well, since there's a Martin Luther King statue in the Capitol, now they would like to see a statue of Charlie Kirk. I mean, again, it just is, it's enshrined racism. And I feel like the media could always do a better job of calling that out wherever possible. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, you can hear him on Amicus tomorrow morning. Mark Jacob has the Stop the Presses newsletter. Go to stopthepresses.news. Jennifer Schulze, look for Indistinct Chatter on Substack. Thank you all very much. Hope you have a good start to the weekend, and thank you so much for bringing so much information to us. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Take care. And in our next hour, we will be joined by Dr. Kristen Lyerly, and we will be joined by Mike Clemens at 8:35 to talk all about that nice Packer victory over Washington last night to go 2-0. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.